Geisha, a modern anathema and a symbol of Japan's culture, history and art. But geisha are often misunderstood, dismissed as ghostly prostitutes and caricatured in costume form. Through this video, I hope to promote cultural understanding, and by the end of this video, you are likely to know something about geisha you didn't know before. Did you know that these aren't geisha, but these are? These girls are actually called maiko. They are only apprentices, and they are typically meant to represent the virginal innocence of youth, aspiring to develop the grace and sophistication of a fully fledged geisha. This is something many geisha costumers don't seem to realize. The white-faced look of the geisha is meant to be subtle and nuanced. They don't simply make themselves appear pale or masked, they become an aesthetic ideal. Believe it or not, all of these girls are turn-of-the-century geisha. At one point in history, geisha were trendsetters. It wasn't unusual to walk into a geisha house and find them in pigtails wearing dresses much like this one. So what is it that makes them uniquely geisha? It was their devotion to style and grace. This is why I applaud the ingenuity and creativity in modern cosplayers. Had geisha continued as a modern culture rather than being relegated to tradition, they probably would have dressed something like Lady Gaga by now. So beauty is technically more important than accuracy when dressing as a geisha. But then why is the kimono so important? Traditionally, kimono is an important way of communicating many things about yourself and your situation. This bride, through her kakeshita headdress and white uchikake robes, is expressing the purity the ideal bride is meant to personify, and also the depth of her old life as a single woman. Her mother and other matronly relatives wear black kuroto masode, expressing their status as unavailable women who are mature and experienced in life. Meanwhile, the bride's youngest sister wears a bright, flowing furisode, expressing the expectation that she too will one day marry. Likewise, the kimono of a maiko will be brightly colored and feature distinctive folds around the shoulder, much like the folds a mother would sew into an oversized child's kimono. The true geisha or geiko will be much more muted in her look. But the kimono that geiko and maiko will wear while working differ in many ways to the standard kimono an ordinary person would wear. The knots on a geisha kimono will be far more theatrical and exaggerated. A typical obi-sash knot will tend to be smaller and more proportionate. A geisha will also tend to wear her kimono in what is called hikizuri. That is to say, the kimono trails along the floor, rather than being hiked up to ankle length. At the front, the obi-sash tends to be much wider than usual, with more ornamentation. It's difficult to explain the distinction between geisha kimono and bridal kimono, as both can appear very similar to the untrained eye. They are both worn hikizuri or trailing style. They both will feature long, flowing sleeves. But a geiko kimono will never have such long, curved sleeves as that of a bride. Hers will always be shorter and more rectangular. You can find both on eBay. But now I shall go into more detail about makeup. Typically, geisha will put their makeup on first. It will be water-based rather than oil-based, and be made by mixing flour with water and affixed to the face using a safe, natural adhesive. They will then regularly add more rice flour to the face as is needed throughout the evening to prevent shine. It's important to avoid thin or oil-based makeup for this look, as it tends to make its wearer look sweaty and tired rather than beautiful and dignified. It's also harder to get thin makeup to look uniform. The makeup must extend all the way down to the chest and cover the whole neck except for the back, where it will form a sharp set of peaks. This is important, as it is considered to be a geisha's beauty mark. A light layer of blush will be applied at the apples of the cheeks, the eyelids, and the temples. A hint of red eyeshadow is added at the outer edge of each eye. Then black eyeliner would be added, and mascara will be important for light-haired women. While geisha are thought to always paint tiny bowed lips, this isn't true. They may paint their lipstick on slightly smaller than their actual lip, but they will still paint most of it. They may, however, only paint the bottom lip, depending on their level of training. The eyebrows are generally worn light, with a little bit of red painted in. They will never be thick, dark and sharp. Geisha makeup can be hard for modern culture to understand. It's said that the white makeup was intended to make the face of the geisha more visible at times where modern lighting didn't exist or wasn't available yet. But it can be understood why modern people would see it as something like a monster. As for hairdos, there are many different styles you can emulate, again remembering that Maiko hair is much more ostentatious than Geiko hair. Buying a high-quality wig isn't a bad idea, but if you'd like to style your own, it's advisable to comb a lot of hair gel in as you work. This is a real geisha wig, but this is a poor imitation. This is a real geisha wig. This is a poor imitation. And this is a real geisha wig, and this is a poor imitation. This is a real geisha wig, and this is a reasonably good imitation. This wig will give you some accuracy, but this wig is much better. All can be found on eBay. The important thing to notice is the way different sections of hair have been placed to form distinctive shapes and mounds at the sides and top of the face. Traditional hair ornaments, called kanzashi, can be found on eBay or Etsy. Pointers for your outfit will include all of the usual kimono dressing points. All of the vertical lines should run perfectly vertically. All of the horizontal lines should be perfectly horizontal. The back of the collar needs to sit away from the neck by at least 2 inches. The different collars should be very stiff and run nearly parallel to one another and form an obtuse angle where the collarbones meet. Geisha will typically wear a very tall pair of geta called okubo. These can be found on eBay in many colors and designs. These will always be worn with white tabi socks. This is one of the better geisha costumes I've seen, but there are still a few important things to note about it. A kimono's fabric shouldn't be so shiny. If someone tries to sell you a kimono that looks like that and saying it's genuine, you're being cheated. The obi sash should be a very different color and design to the kimono. Also, her makeup ends a little too abruptly. It should extend all the way down the neck. Also, the kimono needs to be worn much more neatly. Kimono is one of those outfits where it must be worn so straightly that it almost looks sterile for it to look like a real outfit. This is one of the best kimono costumes I've seen. She is actually wearing a real kimono that she did sewing on herself, but the hairstyle she has chosen is a little too Chinese looking. Having said that, her makeup is lovely and subtle and even. This is probably the best geisha costume I've seen outside of Geisha Henshin Studios in Japan. It needs to be noted that simply wearing a kimono does not make one a geisha. A kimono is not a costume, but a type of clothing, in the same way that Japanese people are real people and not characters from a story. With these tips and a little googling, you can potentially perfectly reproduce the geisha style of dressing, or at least a very pleasant version of your own.